And we are live. Hello and welcome to the Relevate live stream. Welcome, Amanda. How you going?
Oh, look, I'm waiting for my mate Alfred to come, but he's not here yet. It's very confusing.
It's quite frustrating, actually. So if you're not aware, we both live in Brisbane and there is a cyclone off the coast waiting to come through. Now, that was supposed to come through yesterday, then this morning, now tomorrow. And it just seems to be sitting there. It's doing a little bit to like the coast around like the Gold Coast and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But where we are, it's just hot. The sun is out. There's maybe an occasional little bit of wind and rain, but nothing like what we're expecting. So kind of frustrating, all dressed up with nowhere to go. We've got our cyclone kit. We've got our stuff brought in from the yard. But yeah, nothing much. What about where you are?
Yeah, same. So we've had a fair bit of rain and wind. And when I was downstairs earlier this morning walking the dog, it felt like, yeah, there's wind. It feels a bit, but now it's like just muggy and the sun's out and it's like, nah.
At least if it rains, it would cool it down. But at the moment, no,
It's
not the right temperature. So I guess that kind of brings us to what we're going to be talking about today, and that is disaster planning. So I guess it's pertinent to kind of highlight what is a disaster.
Oh, wow. Okay. What constitutes a disaster? I don't actually know the answer to this question. From a business owner's perspective, I guess it means not being able to do business. Am I... Yes or no? Give me the terminology.
Well, like if you're a tradie and like the door's locked and you can't get in, or there's a dog, right? You can't deliver the thing. That doesn't mean that you can't deal with that issue. That's just part of everyday operations. You would just go to the next building or the next job and then reschedule back, say, hey, sorry, can't make it. That's not a crisis. Yes, you can't do that job, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a disaster. Then you've got critical incidents that need a few more people that you might have to bring in a specialist. But a disaster is when it completely stops everything. And, like a cyclone rolling through is obviously something like that. Although not really. Maybe it's not a critical incident it's not a disaster until it rolls through. So at the moment, you've got near us lots of shops still operating, many of whom have closed down, but there's like one or two that are just absolutely pumping it because everybody's bored waiting for the cyclone. And so they're going to go to the cafe and they're going to go, just eat some food and chill out for a bit. A lot of people have an extra free day at work, off work, sorry. So I think in terms of what a disaster kind of brings, like even just in that comment there about the cafe still open, you don't know whether there's going to be a cyclone or not. Obviously, if they live nearby, they've probably got some time to get home. But maybe keeping your staff at work may not be the best thing. You're kind of like getting them to sacrifice their personal safety for keeping the doors open. So on one perspective, you're going to make more money. On the other perspective, you're going to piss off your staff. So
So what do you do? Exactly. And it's such an unpredictable situation. It's literally changing hour by hour. It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah, like you can't sit here waiting. There's a saying I keep thinking of, not necessarily appropriate for YouTube, so I'll say it more simply: poop or get off the pot. You just want the cyclone to come through and do its thing and
make a decision. Just go.
But if it's sitting there threatening for like forever and a day, maybe at some point people will just go, oh, we'll just live with it. We know that it's there. It's just going to keep happening. Life goes on. So what does a business do if they do need to stop for whatever reason? I would say that, we need to have some level of, continuity planning. If something, maybe it's a critical bit of equipment that breaks in your business. Maybe you need to have like a replacement timeline. Obviously, downtime is not good. But what are some continuity planning examples that you can think of?
So for myself and my team, so if for any reason they can't contact me or Joe, who's our team leader, there's always default tasks that can happen. So that there's always something that we can do to move the needle forward. Ensuring, sometimes we use AI. So having a backup AI service is something that's been really helpful for us in the past. So just, I guess, having that if this, then that, which you have a really smart name for. I just say if this, then that. What's it called, Avon? Remind me.
We can have decision rules or a
Yes.
decision support matrix.
Decision support matrix. So if this particular scenario occurs, then we know we take this particular action. So having those systems and processes in place has been really helpful. So I've been in the home office since Wednesday. None of my in-person stuff has sort of gone ahead this week because everyone's been panicking. But myself and my team have been able to work in and on the business because we've got all of those other contingencies in place.
I think, like a lot of times that kind of gives you the impression that you have to document everything, like every possible outcome. And obviously, you're flat out and different things change and different scenarios prop up and things that you never expected. So it's probably like, yes, you should definitely have some, high level decision rules and guiding principles and things, like I've got one where it's like, what is it? Spend a penny, no, save a penny, waste a pound, or something like that. There's a better way to put it. But, like I had a client, I had someone, basically try to save 5 cents on a little bit of laminate, cut it down to like the smallest little label, put it through the thing, and ended up winding around inside the thing and wouldn't come out the other side. And so what was this exercise to save 5 cents turned into a 15-minute staff time cost because they were trying to fix the thing. So you kind of need to have
twice.
Yeah, pretty much stitching time, save time. I don't know, there's heaps. Was there loose lips, people in glass houses, lips. No, there's a movie where it was the Boondock Saints. They mix up this guy mixes up all these analogies. So it makes me think of that. Anyway, like in terms of having your continuity planning, sometimes it might be worth wearing a little bit of risk or wearing a little bit of loss, and not being so like micro reactive to everything. Sometimes it helps just to stop, take a breath, look at the whole scenario, and go, look, we're not going to send everybody home. It's probably going to blow over in half an hour. Like, I mean, talking different scenarios here, and it's very difficult to go into a very deep case study in this sort of episode here. But I think a lot of times when people try to write these procedures, they're going to write some 3,000-page document that no one's ever going to read. One of the best continuity plans or disaster recovery plans or disaster management plans that I've ever seen was not detailed at all. It was probably like a 15-page, 20-page document. And all it did was said, if this type of situation occurs, we're going to bring a work group together with 3 people with these qualifications, and they will decide based on the situation what happens.
Perfect.
You've basically delegated the thinking to people in the moment with the right information. Yes, you put a framework around it to say you'll first identify and write down what the problem is. You'll write down 3 possible outcomes, decide on one, and move forward. Like by trying to, there's a word for it, by trying to like dictate and specify exactly what the outcome is going to be, you end up constraining the creativity to solve the problem.
Yeah, 100%.
So, before you know it, you have these like really wacky ways people are trying to solve problems because they're trying to follow the rules instead of doing something that seems more common sense and obvious. Again, like even the pre-written rules that are not sitting there in the moment are not going to help you to best understand the situation unless there was something where you knew, statistically speaking, of all the occasions before where this has gone wrong, that if we did this one thing that it made it better. That would be where you would specify to say, statistically speaking, 9 times out of 10, this is what's going to solve that problem, and here are all the edge cases where you would go otherwise.
Exactly. And I think you've said this before, Avon. Otherwise, we revert back to guiding principles, right? So more of a general, here's the corral. You can operate creatively within the corral to achieve the outcome we need to achieve.
Yeah, and I think, like in the wake of the cyclone, or not in the wake of, but like in the anticipation of, one thing everybody probably should do is just back up data. That's probably the best thing.
That's a good point.
Like, people have got it sitting on their computer, and quite often people's OneDrive or Microsoft Sync, whatever, isn't working, and so when they go, oh, it'll be fine, and then everything gets washed away and destroyed or burnt in a fire, that they've lost everything. Ideally, you should be keeping backups in 3 different locations, on the cloud, on a hard drive, and then on the device that you want. So you've got triple redundancy. But now we're getting a little bit tactical. But I think in terms of having some kind of disaster recovery plan, I had a client call us and they said, "Oh, cyclone's on. Are you guys shutting down?" I said, "No, we've got people in different parts of the world, and it's business as usual. I'm the only one affected, and that won't even slow us down even 1%. So
no,
away we go." Do you have a continuity plan?
Yes and no. It's more, I guess, those guiding principles in place. We've never given it the name of the continuity plan. The team just knows if, we've got sort of 5 or 6 scenarios. If this happens, then we do this. And we're adding to that as we grow and as we scale, and as different scenarios become apparent in the business.
I think, like it's really hard for a small business to have like big manuals and things written in terms of like how this happens in big organizations like ASX listed companies or universities or things like that. They've got whole dedicated people and teams just to managing risk. And so disaster planning, ideally, like, yes, they'll probably do like the annual training where they have people turn up to a conference hall and then they do like a couple of hours worth of presentations on various issues, but not everybody can do that. So like, particularly as a small business, like every dollar counts. You're like trying to scrape it all together to make life tick along and happen. So it's probably better just, like you said, less is more. Videos are really good on the induction when they're first coming in. And, having an online training program could be really useful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As long as they have viewed it before things stop working.
But if you build it into their onboarding, or if you build it into like a quarterly review process. So I'd encourage anybody, if you've got a program, or you should have like an onboarding program, and you should have some online courses to train your team on what to do when things break, what to do when things go bad. So you know a bit about that, don't you?
Oh, look, all part of the service, right? All part of what we do. And it's not just from a business perspective, you're also helping your team members to feel safe and confident. If something does happen, they know exactly what to do. They don't have to panic. They don't have to stress. If this, then that. They've got the exact way forward mapped out for them.
I think, in a training material, particularly like if it's an onboarding thing, sometimes it's good not necessarily to solve every problem. Like, you're not going to give them like an 18-hour long movie on like, if this, then that, if this, then that. But maybe it's like, here's the like you said, the guiding principles. Here's, we don't panic. We make sure we think about this first. But then here is where you go to find all the documents where you can quickly search in if this, then that. And then you can quickly find that information. Here is where the safety vests are stored. Here's where the fire warden hats are stored. That sort of stuff can be done at a high level and still be useful to everybody. So 100%. I think I think in terms of having a data or disaster recovery plan, um, it's really hard to put it into a live stream other than it's very niche and specific to each individual business. Like this is only relevant specifically around Cyclone right now to people in Brisbane, even though there's cyclones every other day across the northern coast in Darwin. But I think a disaster recovery plan, there's no point having a cyclone plan if you're in Alice Springs, or a I don't know, being abandoned in the desert if you're on the Gold Coast. Like that's not a risk. So having a disaster recovery plan needs to be appropriate to your organization, needs to be simple enough for anybody to absorb and to do it quickly without it taking up too much time. Obviously, you need to bank on having them having some common sense. But other than that,
Yes.
I would say have one or don't have a business.
Essentially, yes, exactly.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty good for today. Any other closing points before we tune out and hunker down?
No, take care, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine
Yep.
Coast,
Tape
and
up your windows.
remember, yes, tape your windows, water, all of those things, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yes, make sure you're staying classy while you're at it.
Absolutely. We'll catch you next